What do you dislike about expansion of the state?
I just like the state having a greater role in every single person's life, regardless of whether or not they agree with what the state is doing. In the sense of, okay, I have to give examples because I'm thinking of examples as I say this. Let's talk about Medicare for all, which is a actually fairly popular policy that a lot of the Democratic Party has pushed significantly. That's more involvement in the person's life. Whether, I mean, I understand that you and your entire chat think that that's objectively for the good. I think that it's going to be probably most likely an expensive disaster, but that's an example. Any sort of government increase in welfare spending, that will lead to more dependence on the government and less self-dependence, I suppose would be one way to put it.
Well, let's hit it one at a time if we
Yeah,
could.
I know.
So
Absolutely.
the point of Medicare for all is that right now a lot of people just can't afford to pay their medical bills or get treatments that they need, necessary life-saving treatments. So in this case, if government involvement is life-saving, this seems pretty defensible from my perspective, right? Like if the involvement of the government is like, yeah, they're involved, congratulations, you don't die of diabetes now. That seems like a pretty, good foot to start on, right?
I think there's ways that you can provide. I mean, we have ways actually. We have, Medicare, Medicaid, but I think there's ways that you can provide life-saving treatment to people without establishing a universal system.
Well, sure, you can, but, ideally any system you construct that can help people would help the greatest number of people. I don't see any point in helping less people for no reason, right? If Medicare for all is following the same basic logic of Medicare, if the government involvement is good, why not? Right?
Well, that's sort of like it is a welfare program that helps people who cannot afford their own, healthcare or health treatment get healthcare, which is a good incentive. But when you're looking at the majority of the population who can't afford healthcare, that's a sort of different situation because then you end up, I mean, these healthcare plans are all different. They all cover different things. And then you put everyone on one plan that's run by the government. I don't consider that good. Government presence, which is, of course, then coupled with tax increases and a decrease in the free market. I
Right.
think that
So,
ultimately harms people.
okay. So the problem is right now, America has basically the worst medical system in the Western world. We have a worse medical system, dollar per dollar, than a lot of non-Western countries. Like, it's actually really embarrassing. And when you look at it and you try to understand why it is, it seems like private corporations' involvement are hugely responsible for the exact ways in which our system is so inefficient. You say that most Americans can afford their health care, but honest to God, not really. Employment and healthcare are tied together for most people in the United States. I can afford independent healthcare because I'm a successful YouTuber, but for a lot of people, getting fired means losing the ability to gain access to their doctor's visits and medications without bankrupting themselves, which seems like a pretty bad system. In fact, pretty much all info we have on the popularity of our medical system indicates that people just aren't like happy with it. We just need a good solution. How do you fix this? And I think a very strong case can be made for more government involvement as a way of fixing these issues. Because if, private investment are a huge cause of these problems, why not target that?
But what you get then is a one-size-fits-all system that's
Yes,
run by the government.
where
A
everyone can access
one-size-fits-all
healthcare.
system doesn't work.
Well, a system where
That's
everyone gets the same insurance. Why does that not work? It's
Well, because
decommodified. You wouldn't pay.
different people need different insurance plans. Like, okay, I'll think of an example here. Herbal medicines that I mean, you already said you're an empiricist. Let's face the reality, don't work. Certain healthcare plans out there right now will help people pay for those, and certain ones won't. And the people that want that can sign up for more expensive healthcare plans that cover that sort of thing, and people who don't need to.
But if we had one Medicare for all system and the people who decided what is and isn't covered wouldn't include fake herbal medicines, then that would just mean that if you want fake herbal medicines, you can buy it without insurance. You can buy it on your own. That might cost more, but I think people selling fake medicine will understand the fact that they're now operating within a changed market because the government is subsidizing the cost of healthcare. For real healthcare, for actual healthcare, right? Like, the stuff that actually helps people, it seems like a slam dunk, no?
That assumes that everyone who is involved in the healthcare plan has the exact same values. Okay, sorry. The reason I slowed down there is because I actually just realized the difference in our arguments about this, and it once again goes down to empiricism. Actually,
Oh
I'll make
no.
my point that I now half disagree with. Uh, I was going, people disagree on what constitutes actual healthcare, is because people believe in herbal medicines, and they will be mad that the government won't cover the herbal medicines, and then they'll petition the government and they'll try to have a bill passed where the universal healthcare covers herbal medicine. That
Um,
would be that sort of situation.
I don't really think that's likely to happen. I mean, we have other medical systems in other countries, and it really seems like the technocratic approach here is kind of necessary, you know? You let the doctors decide, which they should, because your average citizen doesn't know shit about medicine. And it seems like a pretty bad reason to let tens of millions of people wallow with a system they're unhappy with because, like maybe some people want things that don't work for them, right?
You can find an MD that believes in that believes in herbal medicine.
sure, but that doesn't have anything to do with the Medicare for All system, right? We're just talking about people's ability to access these resources for free, which I defend wholeheartedly.
Well, the herbal medicine example, I think, holds some merit, but it's such a minor point within the broader thing that you're mentioning. I'm trying to think of a better example of the one size fits all system, because when you look at what that creates, it doesn't end up working for everyone when everyone is under the same healthcare plan. That's why there's so many differences. And that's just
Well,
what I.
but the systems that we're talking about and we're trying to replace are insurance systems. The only different systems for insurance there are determined by how much money you have. If you have more money, you go for insurance systems that are, better, and if you have less, you go for ones that are less. This isn't really a choice. It's just a long-winded reflection of your socioeconomic status, right? We all have the same bodies, and we all, want to have general doctors, and we all want to be recommended to outpatient stuff if we need a specialist to look at something, or, the process works the same for pretty much everyone, no matter the circumstances. It seems like being able to do all that for free, or at least, not paying for it up front, would benefit a lot of people.
It would definitely benefit a lot of people, but I don't think it would benefit the people that are looking for things that aren't covered by a government health plan.
Well, those, if things aren't covered by it and those things are fake medicine, then I don't care. I'm not going to give hundreds of millions of Americans worse health care that costs them more because some people want to have a health plan that covers herbal medicine, which is not something I've ever heard of, by the way.
Okay, well, I've definitely heard of that because they exist. But regardless, I
No, I've
guess
heard of
the
herbal
other.
medicine. I've never
Yeah.
heard of a health insurance program that has like an additional provision for like non-medically verified medical procedures. You know what I mean? I've never heard of that.
All right, that's yeah. I think they do exist, but I'll move on. And I think you're right about that because I can't think. I mean, yeah, the good. Let's assume that even if my point about the various healthcare plan is true, I think the good that you're mentioning would outweigh that, actually. So yeah, I'm willing to. Yeah, the good would outweigh it. And the other issue that I've heard about having, I'm struggling with how to approach this anymore because I'm doubting a lot of things. But
Well, we're having a good
when you
conversation. I appreciate it either way.
when you look at these countries that do have universal healthcare systems, I spent a little bit of time living in France and I saw it there. And you can look at the Canadian system, which I've never experienced, but I've read about. They're not perfect systems. You have to wait a long time to see specialists. You can't get necessarily healthcare all the time. Doctors aren't paid well. The medical profession isn't quite as strong there. Well, I guess I'm just asking, what would you say to those sort of issues where, government's a bureaucracies are inefficient, it doesn't work out perfectly in these countries that have tried it?
Well, I'd agree, really. There is a real issue there. It's just that oftentimes we forget that these issues exist over here as well. We just don't fully appreciate their scope because over here they're often privatized. Like in the United States, we have like mathematically the least efficient healthcare system in terms of proportion between money spent and outcomes. So we're in the losing bracket no matter what. But then, honest to God, take a look at the NHS. Fucking sucks. They've been
Yeah.
selling off parts of the NHS to private investors for a long time, and yeah, the doctors are oftentimes underpaid. I can't believe I'm saying that. And yeah, it is kind of choked with bureaucracy. It is not good. Though I think, first of all, those aren't Medicare for all, exactly. Those are usually two-tiered systems, but that's kind of a cop-out answer. The real answer to that particular point is more to the effect of the problems that they're facing over there are just a different facet of what we're facing over here. They have wait times. We have wait times, but oftentimes we don't appreciate their true length because the biggest wait isn't factored into our calculations. People not being able to afford treatment. People will wait years sometimes before going to the doctor because the wait line here in our, paid system is in large part a product of how much you're willing to spend. An ultra wealthy person will never have to wait unless they're waiting on some like incredibly rare bullshit. For the most part, they are spared the waiting lines, but other people aren't. And in fact, I'd say America has the worst waiting lines of all. If you factor in people who spend their entire lives not getting their medical issues addressed because they just can't afford to have them addressed. Our bureaucracy's choked as well. Just, it's often private bureaucracy where you have like 5 administrators for every doctor, that bullshit. Our insurance industry does not help with this problem. So I'm only saying I agree with these issues. I just think there are ways to solve them that involve more intelligent allocation of government resources.
I mean, the private bureaucracies that exist, though, have profit incentives and have the incentive to be efficient. The government bureaucracy has no such incentive, and that's why that system ended up so inefficient, and why, as you just said, the British system is so bad. I didn't want to mention the British system because I've done much less research into it.
But our system is less efficient than theirs, remember? In terms of money spent to medical outcomes, ours is worse by a long shot. So whatever incentive to efficiency the private market is giving our boys, it is worse than what the NHS is doing for them.
And that's just because of the cost issue, right? You're arguing the wait times are equivalent to people not being able to pay for the...
Well, I don't actually think that private economies are necessarily efficient, so
okay.
I'm a little biased in that respect. The problem with private health care is that medical care is an inelastic good or service, meaning, of course, that, if a person's dying, they will pay any amount of money to not die. Because they'll pay any amount of money, we don't have the two reciprocal forces that are normally used to dictate responsible pricing in a market. You have like a tin of salt that you want to sell, and the corporation wants to get as much money as they can, but the spender wants to spend as little money as possible. So you try to arrive at some kind of buy-sell equilibrium. Doesn't work with healthcare. It doesn't work with a lot of stuff, housing either, because people need these things. So they're never going to be able to walk away if the price is too high. They get it or they don't.
Well, there's still, as is with any business in capital, or any industry rather in capitalism, there's still competition between different doctors. I mean, you say that the doctor can hike up the price to $1 million and people will still try to find a way to pay it. That's only true if there's not another doctor willing to do it for less money.
Have you ever gone shopping for a doctor? Do you see if they post their prices for their procedures online?
I mean, you certainly can compare options if you
put
the effort in to do so.
Call their receptionist. How much would it cost for me to get X procedure? Well, it depends on your insurance. And then you tell them your insurance, but they won't tell you. You can't compare prices because the system is designed in such a way to completely obfuscate the available visible prices of these services.
Well, I will admit I've not tried to shop around with medical procedures, so I don't know, anecdotally if that's the case, but if that's the case, that certainly is an issue. Now, let's say that issue was fixed and doctors could compete in prices, which I don't know if that's the case or not. But if doctors could compete in prices, if it worked like anything else under the capitalist marketplace, would that allow for the fair competition and the reduced prices?
Well, the next issue that you would run into, and we're going to run into a few, but I think they can all be resolved. The next issue that we would run into here is the insurance companies. See, the price that you get charged not only is invisible, but is also charged factoring in the expected costs of your insurance and how much they'll cover for you. The amount you'll get charged for a procedure can change day to day, week to week, and it can change depending on whether or not you have insurance. Sometimes having insurance is actually more expensive than not. Like, you could pay $100 up front, or they'll charge your insurance company $1,000 if you have one, and you end up paying 20% of that, which is $200. So there's an entire, like, behind-the-scenes, like, mirror and smoke screens gambit going on to make it really difficult to be able to fix or address any of this. But even if you could fix all of that, at the end of the day, you're still paying for something that your life depends on. You know, appendicitis can kill. An appendectomy isn't like an optional thing you can get or not get, right? I mean, it's kind of necessary if you don't want to die. So they still have an advantage over you in terms of their pricing that isn't the case for regular commodities, I think. This is an unresolvable problem under capitalism. Even people like Adam Smith said so with regards to land value, of course, because land is a finite commodity and everyone needs it, or at least needs a home to sleep under. We see these problems replicate themselves in a lot of inelastic goods.
Okay, yeah. As in, you know, you go in, you need the surgery, you're going to get the surgery at the first hospital you show up to, regardless of whether the cost is high or not.
Yeah, and
that does
usually you
make
don't even
sense,
have a
yeah.
choice as well. And you know, if they might hide it from you. You can see some emergency room bills in U.S. hospitals that rake up to the tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars based on what seems to be like magical funny money math being done in the background that has no relationship whatsoever with like the actual value of anything, you know?
Oh yeah, that definitely needs to be fixed. I mean, there's no debating that the current healthcare system needs reforms. That I think we can all get behind that.
Yeah.
Honestly,
Though we
I
are
don't know
talking
how
right
that has to
now,
happen.
we
But
are talking right
yes.
now about stuff that is explicitly incentivized
Oh,
under a privatized system, after all. None of this would be an issue if things were decommodified because the hospital you go to isn't going to get any more money whether or not they fleece you. They can't fleece you. You're not charged anything.
yeah, I guess it's just an issue of if the government bureaucracy is worth that cost or not, because the wait times to see the specialists and all that doesn't play into an efficient system. And I guess the way to fix that under the government would be to just pump more money into it.
Well, yeah,
I'm just
getting
trying
rid
to
of
think.
the insurance agencies as well. That's like a ton of money just getting wasted off the top right there, you know?
Sure, yeah.
Well, how would you say to that? You know, we're talking magic here, okay? Not immediately practical or possible, but let's talk magic. Let's
Right.
say that we do Medicare for all, and what that entails in this specific instance is we snap our fingers, we get rid of all insurance companies because we don't need them anymore. We keep all existing hospitals, all existing clinics, private care, whatever else, and the rule's this, okay? Here's the salary you get. If you're a doctor, a nurse, whatever, here is your salary, all right? You are no longer running a business. This is the government's business now. You just keep doing what you were doing. You know, you're doing the hospital life-saving bit, all right? We're doing the admin bit. They all get their salaries, and the stipulation then is that if anyone comes in and needs any kind of medical help, they just get it for free. There's no charging being done at the door. They walk in there, they book an appointment, or they get one right then, depending on the need. If that could be done, do you think that'd be a fine system?
If the system worked perfectly, the government bureaucracy didn't cause issues, then I would say that would be a fine system, yes.
All right, well, that's nice. I think it's a fine system too. You know, as it's functioning right now in my head, I'm rotating it like a 3D object right up there. Nothing works perfectly, of course, but ideally, you could get something working better than our current system, which is, of course, you know, the real standard for improvement that we should be focusing on.